Thanks for staying with us on 710 KURV. We're going to continue that conversation. We just spoke in the last segment with the newly nominated guy for the Democratic Party for sheriff, Eddie Guerra. This is The Drive Home on 710 KURV. That's Davis Rankin. I'm Kennedy LaFave. And in studio, we have Vince Ousley. He is running for sheriff as well, but he's running on the Libertarian ticket. Davis, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Republicans have until Friday to put somebody up, but I don't think
Why do you ask me?
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, it's August the 1st.
Okay.
Surge.
So now we have Vince Ousley. You can go to his website and find out more about him at ousleyforsheriff.com. ousleyforsheriff.com. I'm going to put a link on our Facebook page, so it'll be easier to find. You just go there, facebook.com/710KURV.
Don't be favoring one over the other.
Of course.
What happens if the communists show up? We're going to put the communist guy's link on our Facebook page?
Might as well have to. Might as well. So, Vince, I got to ask you, why would you want to run against the Democratic Party who is just so good at picking sheriff candidates and sheriff nominees? Now, I'm not saying Ed Guerra is a bad guy. He's actually a pretty nice guy. But 2 of the last 4...
He's got the best mustache in law enforcement, and I know our guest
and that he does.
I agree with that.
But 2 of the last 4 candidates from the Democratic ticket for sheriff are hardened criminals or convicted criminals. You can dissect it however you want.
When you're digging
Why
a hole,
would you want to run
stop.
against them?
Here's the thing.
You don't have to answer that.
We're talking about a law enforcement position. The job of a law enforcement officer is to enforce the laws. We don't make the laws. We simply enforce them, and it shouldn't matter what letter precedes your name.
So, Vince, when we get to know you a little bit, for all of our listeners out there, your name is Vince Ousley. You're running for sheriff. Currently, though, can you tell us what do you do for a living and give us some of your background and what has prepared you for this position?
Well, I started my law enforcement career in 2004. I was hired with the Harlingen Police Department. Since that time, I've worked for a few local agencies. I worked for the La Jolla School District Police Department. I worked for the Palmhurst Police Department, the Palmview Police Department. That was the last agency I worked for before my current one was Palmview.
So is that smaller than Palmhurst or larger than Palmhurst?
Palmview is actually larger than Palmhurst.
Really?
Yes. Not by a lot.
That's not that big, though.
Neither one are big.
Now, here's a serious question. What is there to do in towns so small? There's nothing wrong with being a small town, but I always wonder what's the duties?
As far as law enforcement duties,
yeah.
It's the same. We're running traffic. We're responding to calls at homes for assaults, for domestic violence, burglaries, thefts at the stores, everything. Same basic thing.
So then after you left the department, you went over and started working for the feds.
Well, actually for the state.
Oh, for the state.
I work for the state of Texas. I'm an agent with the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission.
And you've been doing that for the last couple of years?
For about a year and a half. I started in February of 2013 with the state. And basically we're investigators, and we investigate crimes that occur on at the location of businesses that have liquor licenses.
This was an out of left field question, is there still liquor smuggling? There was a time when the guys who smuggled marijuana, and I guess they now smuggle other things, the guys who smuggled marijuana had smuggled sugar and tequila. I was told by a federal officer that the same smuggling routes, sometimes the same families are involved in smuggling stuff.
There is still liquor smuggling to some extent. We have some of our, I guess, bridge agents.
Mm-hmm.
They're not peace officers.
Are those the guys who put the stamp on your liquor bottle?
Put the stamp on the liquor bottle. You pay a tax there to the state. But people try to get it in all the time.
Well, I'm not. I'm talking about like Boardwalk Empire smuggling.
I don't know.
Not some guy smuggling a bottle of vodka in. Like
I don't know.
I tried one time.
That was during Prohibition, though.
I got
show.
caught. I tell you, they broke the bottle in front of me. I thought I was going to weep a river.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite as big an industry as it once was anymore.
It could be.
It could be.
It could be.
There was a time. Well, I'll quit doing the way back when stuff.
So you were in office for so long, police department. Then you went and started working for the state, and now you're just so fed up with working for the state. You want to be sheriff?
Not at all. No. Actually, I enjoy my position with the state. It's an investigative position, and it's a lot more family friendly than working the patrol beat. I enjoy it.
But I got to ask you, what made you want to become the sheriff? Because as we've spoken with the sheriffs many of time, they 800 something employees. I mean, you have to worry about all
those
this.
Are jail employees.
You're the top cop. It is a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work. Why would you want to step into that?
When I was first approached, and a friend of mine approached me and said, "Hey, sheriff resigned today." Speaking of the former sheriff, He said, "Do you have any interest in something like that?" And I hadn't honestly thought about it. This was about 6 months ago, or whatever, about 6 months ago or so when he resigned. And I hadn't really thought about it prior to that. And then I started thinking about it, and I started speaking with my wife and friends, and we started praying about it. And basically, we decided that, you know what, let's give it a little bit of time and decide if this is something we feel. We're Christian. We're a Christian family. If we feel God's leading us to do it, then we're going to try it. And we did. And I'm really the kind of guy that if I see a need or see something that needs to be done, I don't like relying on other people to do it. I'd rather give it my best shot and try to help the situation as much as I can personally.
Why the Libertarian Party instead of running the Democratic primary or running as a Republican?
Sure. Again, as a law enforcement official, it shouldn't matter, first of all. It's irrelevant. Party is irrelevant to enforcement of the law. Should be. I'll say that. Second of all, I always consider myself a conservative libertarian. In other words, I could run. I wouldn't be violating my own morals or ethics to run as a Republican, nor am I to run as a libertarian.
You're just not a Democrat.
Not a Democrat, and that's based on what their national party, ideals are.
Mm-hmm.
What's the sheriff do?
Well, sheriff is basically the chief executive officer of the county. The way I see it, he's responsible for, of course, the patrol deputies. He's responsible for the jail. He's responsible for all the staff employees, the civilian employees there at the sheriff's department. And basically, he's a CEO. He manages a big budget.
This might be a difficult one to ask based off your age and stuff. What do you think the last sheriff did wrong? Like, why did he stoop so
aside
low?
From Monday learning.
No, but what do you think led him to doing that? And how can you differentiate yourself to when we know that Vince Ousley, sheriff for Hidalgo County, is not going to do that also?
I think there's a couple of things. First of all, he ran in the political circles. He was friends with politicians, and not that in and of itself is bad, but I think that it puts your foot in the door and makes it easier to take that first step towards corruption. Second of all, as I just mentioned, we're people of faith. We're a family of faith, and I believe that corruption is not so much the problem. I think that the problem is a problem of the heart. I think corruption is just a symptom of those problems, and I think without proper leadership and having the proper person in place that is keeping that in mind, we're going to be doomed to repeat it.
It was said of Henry Escalone, the guy who preceded Luke. In fact, Trevino beat him at the polls. And I wouldn't know Henry Escalone if he walked in the door. And Henry, if you're listening, call us at 800-580-8255, that his problem, quote unquote, was he just wasn't chummy with the commissioner's court. He just wasn't a politician. He stayed in the office, did sheriffy things, but didn't get out and...
I think that's what we need, is an individual who's not chummy with it, because...
I'm posing a contrarian question, which is what Mr. Ousley says. His hierarchy of values got that guy defeated because the politicians turned against him.
And look what happened because of it.
Why don't you let Mr. Ousley?
I'm sorry.
I get I get where you're going. I think, Davis.
You think?
I think.
If you know, let me know.
Yeah.
No, your point's well taken. If you get too chummy with people who do favors for a living, because that's the way politics works. I don't care what the extremes say. Then it's inevitable. You may end up with a wrong chummy crowd.
I can tell you this pretty confidently that nobody that is a very influential person or very powerful politician in the Valley wants me to be sheriff. I can say that pretty confidently. One of the things I said at the forum last week was that the first time I stand before the commissioners, should I be elected as sheriff, I'm going to ask them for a list of the people who are above the law. And if they refuse to give me that list, I'm going to assume everybody in Hidalgo County, including the commissioners, are susceptible to the laws as they're written.
Well, if you like this guy, his name is Vince Ousley. We want to continue the conversation in just a minute. We'll take a short break. His website is ousleyforsheriff.com. You can also find him
Ousley.
Ousley for sheriff.com, and you can find that on our Facebook page. Stay with us. We will continue getting to know this guy up next on News Talk 710 KURV. Thanks for staying with us on News Talk 710 KURV. Last segment, we spoke with Vince Ousley, and we want to continue that conversation on the drive home on News Talk 710 KURV.
He's the Libertarian Party candidate.
Yep, that's Davis Rankin.
I didn't know there was an organized Libertarian Party.
Yeah, and there's
they're organized off and on has been my experience.
I think that's pretty accurate. we all know the Democratic Party is the vast majority down here, and then we have the Republican Party, which is significantly smaller than the Democratic Party. Then we have the Libertarian Party, which is significantly smaller than the Republican Party. So it's a small group of people.
On Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the libertarians are at the top. They've satisfied all their physical needs. Now they're going for the ethereal.
And I want to make sure that people understand what the Libertarian Party ideal is, and that's that the most minimal amount of government while still maintaining law and order is basically what it is. Okay.
What do you have an idea of what the department needs or doesn't need in terms of equipment, manpower, or woman power, or what?
My involvement with the Hidalgo County Sheriff's Department has been pretty limited. When I was a canine handler with the Palmview Police Department, I did do some training and things with them, and I saw things that equipment that was outdated, equipment that was actually dangerous for the officers, including the dogs. I know that they need some of those things, and I think that's pretty standard across the law enforcement. We always need something a little bit better or something a little bit newer, or we at least want it. But I also believe that one of the key things that needs to be done is a command staff needs to be brought in that the sheriff himself brings in, that the sheriff vets, that the people can get behind, and that they understand are here to serve the community.
There was criticism leveled at incumbent, now the Democratic nominee, Eddie Guerra, the first interim now, well, he's still interim, and the Democratic nominee, that he didn't clean house as they thought he should have. You have an opinion about that?
I've heard a lot of talk about that. It seems as though a lot of people want him to clean house. And to me as an elected official, and plus it's normal, first of all, it's normal for a new sheriff to come in and bring in their own command staff. That's not something unheard of. That's actually quite normal. I want to bring in the people to work under me who I know and I can trust, and they're able to do that job. So, yeah, I think that people expected that, and I think that would have been a wise thing to do. It's always easy to sit here and armchair quarterback somebody when you're not in the seat yourself, but I think that would have been a reasonable thing and something that people expected.
How do you avoid corruption?
First of all, I don't think you can totally avoid corruption as an agency, as a department. I think it's a constant battle that you're going to have to fight. And one of the ways to do that, one of the things I want to implement is a citizen review board. And that in and of itself is not going to avoid corruption. That is just going to give a window into the sheriff's department for the community so they can see what's going on.
No right-thinking law enforcement officer wants citizens looking over their shoulder, though.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department or Sheriff's Office does it. San Antonio Police Department has a similar program in place. A lot of big departments that have been around for a while that we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're simply applying something that works.
What about as some agencies have gone to cameras on the uniform or on
the body cams?
Body cams.
Yeah, I've worn them. We did a pilot program in Palmview where we were wearing those body cameras, and they're great. They're great. The officers, there's no excuses. You know exactly what's said. You know exactly what's being done.
Clean up your language, did you? Is that what?
Well, it's funny. When you're in law enforcement for a certain amount of time, you realize real quick which officers know how to talk properly to citizens and which don't. It's the ones that are filing the use of force paperwork all the time that don't know how to talk.
I think a lot of people can embrace that down here.
Where I could see them I thought that was the first thing they taught you.
When we had the DPS surge last time, when they had those little checkpoints and such, I think a lot of individuals who don't pay attention to politics, they really woke up with that. They don't understand the political sphere of it all. They really started paying attention to certain law enforcement officials kind of stepping past certain lines, and they took offense to that, which is why
YouTube fixed that problem.
Which is why they don't do it much anymore. So I think a lot of people would embrace some of your thoughts. Is that different from other individuals you've spoken to who want the same position as you? Are you an outsider?
Considering what's going on a national scale, and if people understood the authority that a sheriff actually has in the county, I mean, they are the top law person in the county, above the chiefs of police of the cities and everything. When it comes down to it, the sheriff is the one, in natural disaster that's going to make a decision. And if you don't have a constitutionalist sheriff, you're going to be in trouble. You need somebody that's here to protect the Constitution.
Well, let's go back to something you mentioned. This is your last question for you. In the very first segment, talked to your slogan is "No ties, no lies." What does that mean?
Basically, it means I'm not associated with any politician, any influential person. I don't know justices. I don't know judges. I don't know attorneys. None of that. I don't associate with them. I'm outside the box. I'm outside the loop, and that's what we need in Hidalgo County.
Will you be readily available for interviews if you do get to be sheriff for 710 KURV?
Of course, absolutely.
Anytime.
Well, then
day
there
or
you
night.
go. On that and that alone. Ousley for sheriff.com if you want to learn more about Vince. Vince, it's good meeting you, good talking to you. And if you want to listen to this interview, I'm going to put it on our Facebook page so you can get to know him. You can compare him to the other guy that's Eddie Garrett we spoke to in the very beginning of the hour. Stay with us on 710 KURV.